Hey, what's up? This is Paul Schultz, and we're playing around with Swift on the command line. So if you type Swift dash version, you can see what version of Swift you're running, and I should have 5.10. I see this is Swift 5.10 right here, and I'm on Mac OS 14. All right, so Swift Package Manager has some tools. We looked at one of them to create an executable. Now let's create a library. This is another tutorial from Apple, so I'll have a link for this as well if you want to follow along. It's pretty simple, but this is a great way to get some tests. So if you want to do some test-driven development, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and make a directory. So mkdir, my library. Go into that directory. And now we'll use the Swift Package Manager to set up an initial project. So we're going to give it a name with the Swift package init command and dash dash name. We'll call this my library. And then the type, previously we did executable. You could also do a command line tool. We're going to go with library. Right, so that will create a directory. So we're going to see a package.swift. So we're going to get a gitignore, a sources folder with a library file in the my library folder based on the name that we had given it. We're going to see my library tests and then a test file. So if we type ls, we should see all that. If you were to open this, you could open package.swift in Xcode and you would see it pop up. If you don't see the box because Xcode failed to load, then you can just close this and reopen it and it should open. So when we do that, that's going to give us a place to work, and it's just going to have a simple test. I don't know if the test has anything, so let's take a look at that. So the test doesn't do anything, it's just a bunch of documentation links, and this is just absolutely nothing. So what you can do is you can go ahead and run it. So I'm just gonna close this for right now. If we run Swift and then give it the test command instead of the run or the build, this will run our tests for us. So it's going to compile the library, which really doesn't do anything, and then run the tests. In this case, it says that it succeeded. There were 0 failures. So now we can write a little library, and we can replace the code and do something interesting. So this is an example of a regular expression that is being generated to parse email addresses. So let's just go into that file, vi sources, my library.swift. So we don't need any of that, so I'll just dd to delete. Okay. So now I'll go back into normal mode. We'll insert, let me select terminal. And we're just going to import foundation. We're going to create a structure email. And then I've got longer tabs, so in order to edit that, I'm just going to do tab stop. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and edit this. Set the tab stop to 4. I still haven't configured that yet, and they're making it so this is convertible. It looks like description is going to be blank unless we actually parse a valid email address, which is a little interesting. So let's go ahead and type that out. So we're going to take a parameter for the email address, and it looks like, oh, okay, so we're going to throw an invalid thing if this fails. Um, okay, so if there's an error, we're going to throw an invalid email error, which is a subclass or subtype of the error type that can store an email. Um, and then we're going to write some tests around this. So what I like to do is before I write all of this logic, if I was writing this for the first time, I'm going to go into my test file and write some kind of test. We want to go into the test file, not the sources, so that's going to be so in here we've got some stuff. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to test with valid email and then invalid email. Okay. So if we create an email like that, it's if we're expecting this to throw, um, then on the next line, we would then test it with the xct assert equal. And so all this is doing is just checking that this matches. We'll do it for Johnny Appleseed. And then the other thing we want to test is some invalid emails. So what would be an invalid email? Well, there's different ways of parsing this. There's different components. So those three different emails should be invalid. So that's a good starting point. Typically, I would do these in separate tests, but I'm just doing a simple example here. So we're going to just say test email, then get rid of this. And then we should be able to save that. If we do Swift test, I'm expecting to have something not work. Okay, so now we're going to go back into our code file. And then in here, what we want to do is we want to initialize. So we didn't initialize that before. So we're going to say health.description is equal to email string. Oops. Now if I save this and we run our test one more time, we should see that it actually compiled, but now we have a test that's failing. So we had 3 failures, did not throw an error, did not throw an error, did not throw an error. So then what we can do is just go through and update this. So I'm going to go to the end of the line here with the $ shortcuts, press append, enter, and we'll create a regex. So using the pound symbol is going to allow us to sort of escape the characters in here. And then we're going to have multiple sections. So the first section, we're going to do A through Z, 0 through 9, and then lowercase a through Z. And then, what is this? That can be one or more. So then we do percent, plus, minus. I don't know exactly what that plus minus is. One of those means something else. I don't know that off the top of my head. And then we can have one or more of those. So we have the plus at the end, and then we've got an at. So that's like Paul at supereasyapps.com. So we're trying now to match the domain portion, which is going to be A through Z, 0 through 9, dot. It's like one or more. And then if we do a plus, that can be, I think, repeating. And then we've got a period that we need to match. To do the slash period. And then again, we've got A through Z, A through Z. I don't think you can have numbers there, and there's probably a limit of how big an email address can be. So I think that's what that's doing. If you just open ChatGPT or any kind of regex place, okay, because you can have those special characters. This matches the dots and the ending be 2 to 64 characters. Okay, so if we type that correctly, it should be good. Then we're going to try and guard let and actually use the regex expression. So guard let, and we're just checking to see if this regular expression can be found. And that's going to be the sort of deciding factor of if this is a valid email address. If not, then we throw the invalid email error email. Otherwise we assign. Let's save that and see if we compile that correctly. And then we're going to see that we passed 0 failures, executed 1 test. So that's a simple way to create a little library to run it and to get started with the Swift package managers just doing everything in VI. Again, you can open this in Xcode and you can do the same type of thing, but that's how to get started. So thanks for watching. I hope this was interesting and that you learned something about using Swift test from the command line. We've used Swift build so far in the previous ones. We've done Swift run, but there's no executable here, so you can't run this because this is just a library that you can use in another package. This is super helpful when I'm like wanting to test out something really quick. The Swift package manager to like just initialize a new project is a really useful command if you want to do more stuff on the command line. Cool. All right, so I'll see you in the next video, and we'll be playing around more with Swift and probably iOS development.